Hope you guys enjoy the fake typing sounds.
What do you mean fake typing sounds?
My browser does fake typing sounds. Okay.
That's weird.
Yeah. Anyway, so do you have any guesses as to what this week's
I
catch is?
I think it's gonna be we're in a chunk.
Mm-hmm,
It's an uneven chunk, so I'm assuming it's gonna expand every day.
You would be correct.
Yippee!
Yippee!
What can I say? I love these. I love Minecraft challenges. They are top tier. Gotta be some of my favorite challenges.
Me too. Yes. For the people at home, this will be expanding every single day. So once we go to bed tonight, we will be 1 block wider.
That's what she said.
What are you eating?
Orange chicken. I was just given dinner.
Is it yummy?
For the most part, they added peppers in my noodles, which really made me upset because I hate peppers. And it kind of just tainted the noodles. Because it has that weird, like, pepper flavor that I am not a big fan of.
Right.
So.
Gotcha.
Just eating the chicken.
That's fair.
It's good, though. I also have, like, 3 crab rangoons, so.
Ooh,
I think
nice.
my parents made up for it.
Yeah, I think so.
They didn't put the peppers in, but like they're the ones who saw the peppers.
Uncommon 8L.
What? Who is that? Who am I kicking the ass of?
Palace Sandman.
I know where you live.
Do you now?
Yep.
Oh shit.
I do now. Did I ever tell you about the fact that my personal Instagram account is about to get banned?
What?
Yeah, I accidentally told people to KYS too many times.
One too many times.
Yeah, I did it twice, and I also threatened the banks. So, I'm not allowed to do that anymore.
Even the pig is appalled.
Well, I was really upset at the banks, you know? So, like, I was just like, I'm gonna do horrible things to the banks, and Instagram was like,
the banks? What banks?
All of them.
Every single one?
All of them.
Oh, shit.
Well, it was my bank that was closed at the time for no reason. I don't even think it was a Sunday, so I don't think they really had no excuse to be closed. Like, they should have been open. It's insane that they weren't. What the hell do they expect me to do when I'm all the way in New Jersey? Not New Jersey. What's the other one?
The other one.
What's the real scary place that people are usually scared of? Detroit, that one. When I'm all the way in Detroit.
You went from a state to Detroit.
Well, I was thinking of like where it was, and then it's Detroit, Michigan that I was in. But my bank was closed, right? And I was all the way in Detroit, so I couldn't even buy anything with my card because my bank was closed and they shut off my card. Because I was in Detroit and they noticed the purchases from Detroit and went, whoa. Whoa. Can't have that happening. They didn't like call me or anything before being like, yo, what's up, big dog? You got charges on your account from Detroit. You know anything about that? And I didn't even get a chance to defend myself. They just went.
Yeah, I've noticed that I see like YouTubers and shit getting calls and being like, hey, we noticed this like fraud going on when they're like doing those big videos of like them buying a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
But then all of us little people, we aren't getting those calls. So what's going on?
Like, No, I was at a Smash Bros tournament. Nothing bad is happening.
It was that. It was at that tournament.
Yeah, it was when I was in Detroit for the tournament.
Oh my god!
And I was like, they're like, sorry, shut off your card, and the banks were closed. And I was like, what the fuck, man? I kind of need that.
I love it. They didn't even. No. They didn't even like ask.
They didn't ask anyone. They didn't call my parents. They didn't call me. Nothing.
They didn't like ask, yo, is this you, to confirm. They just were like, no, this is definitely fraud. Turned it off.
Yeah. And the weird thing
I think my bank at least is like, my previous bank at least like texted me when they had fraud alerts, and I'd just be like, yeah, no, this is me.
That's
and they'd be like,
dog,
okay. They'd be like, okay, chill.
Yeah, no, they were just like, oh, from Detroit? No. Like, I was just in Detroit for a week. It wasn't that big of a deal. And then I got upset and posted on Instagram that I was gonna do horrible things to a bank that I probably can't say or should not say on Twitch due to my aggression on Instagram from saying such horrid things, apparently.
You know, Instagram had a whole entire folder on you for sure.
They probably do. How many times I've told people to die or like anything? Like, I have my 3 strikes. Next time, I get my account deleted.
They were keeping a tally.
Yeah, they're like, he's back and he's saying the bad things again.
The bad things.
It's like where the wild things are, but it's just me saying horrible things on Instagram. The wild things are me. I am the wild.
Mm-hmm.
That was a crafting table. So what? You know?
I don't actually.
No, I'm not entirely sure either. But I think we may need a water source.
A what? What for? Are you trying to escape? Are you trying to escape our enclosure?
I don't think I can. Actually, I could. I think I could.
I'm not about to do that, chat.
I'm not gonna don't kill the dog, what? That's so impolite.
That's so mean. He's trying to escape just like us, okay? He's a prisoner just like us.
Damn it, I can't reach outside the border. They won't let me.
Oh.
Dog, in the boat, now.
Oh. I found some friends.
What type of friends?
Bad
ones? Good ones? Neutral ones?
You know, the like, kind.
Yeah. So zombies.
Some.
Does that mean you have like a, cave?
Not a good one.
Oh.
Did you do that?
No.
Are they infighting? They must be infighting.
Mama infighting.
I lit up the fight for you.
What do you mean by that? Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
You're really being good. What's over there? Nothing. This sucks.
It's fucking nothing.
Maybe some not. I have a grabber and goon, so who really is winning?
You.
Yummy.
Dude, when I... Sorry, chat. Anyway, when I was eating dinner, right, I had a manigot.
Mm-hmm.
And,
wait, what?
It's spelled like...
man of God?
Yes, I had a man of God. Yeah. It's spelled like this, but I'm a fucking New York Italian, so I say it different.
Manicotti, yeah.
Manicotti.
You gotta, your mom. And then
it's like regat.
Your mother's hot.
It's like regat, which it does have in it, actually, funny enough. But, so I had manigot, which, does that clear out anything for you or no? Do you know what that is, manigot? So it's, like it's a thin sheet of pasta, and it's got regat in it, and it's like the pasta rolled up.
What the fuck is regat?
Ricotta cheese.
Oh, okay.
Large caliber pasta. Essentially, yeah, it looks like a large caliber bullet.
Jesus.
That's what it looks like. Realistically, if you were to put like a slug from a here.
I have a stone pickaxe.
You can take mine too.
I'm gonna break it.
If you were to take a like a shotgun shell and put it next to manigot, they would look exactly the same, except one's made out of pasta and regat.
But I load it in a gun.
Yes, but it would probably be pretty difficult and also disgusting. So I was eating it, and oh, it is dark up here. We have made an anyway. So I'm nom-nomming on like 4 of these things. Having a good old time, and I've eaten like a fair amount of these before. These are like one of the foods that I'm cool with. No problem. Now chat, mind you, this is pasta, okay? I do not eat this with sauce. A typical person eats this with sauce. I do not. I am a picky person. I dislike sauce. So just putting this out there.
Real.
I do not eat it plain, though. I eat it with butter on it.
Yeah, you would.
But, think of me as, like, a slightly more sophisticated child, okay? I will eat childlike foods, but I'll also eat a couple things that a child would not eat. But, so I'm eating it, having a good time, and I'm watching TikToks, I think it was. TikToks or YouTube? So I'm hanging out, and I take a bite, and I just randomly get an herb. What? Some herb. Don't know what it was. Just some herb. And safe food out the window.
Oh, shit.
Out the window. Don't know what it was, but the taste just filled up like half my mouth. And like I tried to take one more bite of it, and the flavor flavor of the regular taste like got rid of it. Totally fine, but after that I just could not get the like you know
the idea.
Yeah, could not get the idea out of my honestly, thinking about it, it was probably rosemary. Could not get it out of my head.
Oh gosh.
So now that food is fucked for me. Now I'm done for.
Free her. Who put her in your food?
Wait, I forgot. Oh no. Who put your girlfriend in my food?
No.
Who put your girlfriend in my food?
What the heck?
Oh, I'd have to go back to find that for context, chat. Let me see if I can find this.
The best context I can explain is that Mari's full name is Rosemary, which sounds like Rosemary. So every time I see Rosemary, I associate it with her. And I took a photo of it at a store. And I sent it to her just with the caption, "Free her." And then we sent it to Kingdom's SMP chat.
No caption, though. It was literally just a photo of a plastic container of rosemary.
And then I said that it was my girlfriend.
Yeah. Literally, it's literally on the 15th. It's just 8 sends a photo of a container of rosemary. Me. Rosemary. 8. That's my girlfriend, smiley face. Me. Your girlfriend is a box of herbs, not knowing that Mari's full name is that. Okay. Yeah? Yours isn't? Not really. Why? Because she isn't? Why? Queen chimes in. She looks lovely, 8. Me. 8. Thanks. I keep her locked in my cupboard. Me. Why would she be 8? 8. I hope she isn't 8. You'd be in jail. Me. I'm going home.
I'd like to point out that Mari was the one sending all of those messages. I was just laying next to her.
That's amazing.
She takes my phone and messages my group chats. Like, any chat that I'm in, more than likely she has messaged there at least once. Like, my group chat for when I did, Heather's the Musical, she started messaging in there randomly. Just, hi Heather's group chat. And now she's playing 2B2T, so I'm terrified.
You did plain spaghetti with just a shit ton of cheese on it?
What the fuck?
See, people like to make fun of me for eating pasta with just butter on it, even though that is something that specific people in Italy eat.
Pasta with butter is good. It's so yummy.
Pasta with butter is something that people in Italy eat. In a specific area of Italy eat, I found out.
What?
Yeah, they'll eat it with butter in Italy, in a specific area of Italy. Although they typically do eat it with, like, a lot of...
Make it sound like it's, like, this area only.
Well,
so, like, if you leave that area, you're not allowed to.
Well, it, like, originates from there, because everyone else is like, no sauce. Like, that's, like...
You need the sauce.
But, like, they'll eat it with butter, and then they'll put, like, a shit ton of cheese on it. But just cheese is insane.
That's cursed in all honesty.
Is horrifying.
Like, I'm imagining shredded cheese too.
Oh yeah, not even like Parmesan.
Parmesan.
No,
just
not
shredded cheese.
Yeah, just like
those, like the the yellow and the white cheese.
Yeah,
the mixture of the two.
Just like
I forgot what that's called.
Just a bag of shredded cheese.
On. That or just
they take a block of cheese. They just shred it.
Just plop. Did it already like move, or does it have yet to move?
I have no idea.
No, it hasn't moved yet. Well, I don't think it has. No, it hasn't. No movement yet. I want to see it move.
No movement yet.
Move.
You sound like you're like stalking outside someone's apartment or something, and you're just like,
I'm waiting for it to
no movement yet.
No movement yet. I'm watching, hoping. I hope it'll move soon.
See, that's terrifying. You didn't even get an even distribution of cheese, so there were parts that were just plain pasta. Although, to be fair, I was one of those kids that would, like, sneak plain bits of pasta out.
It moved and I missed it!
I would sneak out plain bits of pasta when, like, my parents were cooking, because I was, like, hungry and they weren't done yet.
Would you guys ever eat, butter raw? Like, when your parents were cooking or something? You just kind of get a finger of butter and just eat it?
No.
I think I need to talk to my therapist.
You need to talk to your therapist anyway, because you eat fucking
They're so yummy, August.
You eat lollipop sticks.
I did one. I ate one earlier today. It was so good. It was so yummy. I have a new bag of lollipops.
No!
Like, I have them sitting next to me.
Don't.
I'm
gonna gray early because of you.
I
am 21 and I'm going to gray early because of you.
This is the original mix. The bag I was eating last stream was the, like, I almost said the flavor mix, but it had, like, more...
The flavor mix. The sticks are flavored.
I wish. That would make me want to eat them more. I already want to eat them normally.
Jesus. Do you need food at any point, by the way?
No, I have lollipop sticks.
Not.
I have a singular pork chop.
I'm gonna fucking kill you.
Pork chop.
I'm gonna fucking kill you. I'm gonna reach through this fucking screen and throttle you. I swear to fucking God.
The real death of August is this series. The true death.
If anyone questions
Captain Arby gone missing at age 21.
If anyone questions that we're siblings, just show them this fucking series.
They take me into questioning, and I just go, "Look, I was only talking about the lollipop sticks. I'm innocent. I swear."
I'm in the other fucking room screaming my head off.
You can't even hear the word stick or lollipop normally anymore without like screaming. I think every one of these streams I'm just gonna start bringing up the lollipop stick.
Oh God.
Stick. They're so good though. Like I just opened the package
How?
today too. I don't know.
They are like I'm almost positive they are literally rolled up paper.
They are. I unroll them and like let them just like chew them up and dissolve them on my tongue.
You have a process?
Yeah.
And you looked at me weird for licking the flavoring off of chips and then eating the chip.
Yeah, because then they get soggy.
Not that soggy. You're sitting there and methodically unrolling a fucking lollipop stick.
I'm on the grind, August. So it's not like I'm eating the whole stick. I'm eating like the top bit. So like
that would be the soggiest.
So you know where the like on the wrapper of the lollipop it like cuts off? That's where I bend it and like start like just having it in my mouth. So like I break it when the whole thing is like stiff. That sounds horrible.
It does.
And then I just like eat the lollipop and then I eat the stick. Shout out to all my lollipop eaters.
No one is with you.
No, I swear there is.
No one is with you.
No, I swear this happened. A few other people do this, I swear.
No.
Like 4, at least.
No.
Um.
See, that's okay. That's totally fine. That is fair. Eating Kit Kats layer by layer. That's fine.
How do you even do that? What? Like,
cause they're on the like conveyor belt, so they like make them layer by layer. I'd assume.
You're made layer by layer.
Yeah.
Well, technically not really.
The first layer is rage.
Yeah, it would be.
I can't believe you agreed.
Your layer would be lage? Rage?
Lage.
Lage.
Oh, Twix bars are so good.
Do you, like Twix with a knife or with your mouth? That sounds odd.
Probably with your teeth.
With your teeth? Are you putting them on like tooth caps?
No, like take your bottom teeth Twix. And just, you know?
I don't know. I can't remember the last time I had a Twix.
Honestly, me either. Wait, no, maybe. Probably actually Halloween.
Wait. Uh-oh. No, I'm fine. Never mind. We're good. I'm trying to peer. I'm trying to look through. I can't see shit. There's nothing back there. I feel so slow walking around now because on Kingdoms, I'm so fast.
You are. You're a speedy boy.
I know. It's amazing. I love the amount of, like, speed I have. It's so nice. I wish I could always be at that speed. I just want to be fast as fuck.
Fast as fuck, boy.
So true.
Hello?
Hello?
That sounded like a dog growl or like someone dragging something. 50-50 chance. Brandy likes to growl at my door in anticipation and then bark. She's like, this is your last chance. Open the door before I bark. And then barks anyway.
Door. I'm gonna throw rocks
through your window, you dumb whore.
Dr. Phil sure is a person. Wish he wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
I'm mine all day. I'm mine all night.
I found more coal.
Yay!
Yay! My nose itches.
I don't know if you heard, but the other day, my last day freed from the bare arms of school, I gathered, like, 9 plus 9, that's 18. Oh, like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Wait, no. I got over 18 stacks of diorite.
Damn.
Just because Levi was like, I want some diorite. I need some because I can't mine stone. So I was like, okay. So I just mined 18 stacks of diorite. Because I was like, I need to go mining. And then I just mined out like a cove of diorite. It's quite nice. On the hashtag grind, if you will.
Why are you looking at me like that?
I'm looking at how your shawl clasps. Does it clasp?
No.
What?
It's kinda like have you ever like taken a blanket and just like draped it over your shoulders and kind of been like, oh, it's a cape, and run around the house?
Yeah.
It's like that.
Yeah, but how does it stay on you?
Sheer force of will.
Oh.
And probably just like heaviness, because it's like
moss.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like
you would have a moss jacket.
Yeah. It's just like a solid amount of moss all the way down my arms and back.
Take a shower. Please.
It's like a layer of, well, it's not like attached to me, but
no, it is.
It's like a jacket.
I'm so warm, guys. Please. Guys, I swear it's sanitary.
It is sanitary.
Levi loves me for my moss jacket.
Levi thinks it's comfy when we cuddle.
So true.
I mean, moss is soft.
It is soft. Yeah, I can't disagree with that. It is quite fun. So in the summer, moss grows between the bricks in my backyard, so I'll pull it out because it's fun, and I like to because it feels silly.
Mm-hmm.
So I just pull out moss, and I'm like, ooh, it's so soft.
I love that you switched your skin and I forgot to. So
I've been switching my skin back to my normal one for this. I'm really cool.
Yeah, I hopped off to eat and just like was like, oh, I'm gonna immediately be hopping on here, and just completely forgot about my skin. So.
Yeah, that's fair. I also forget that I have skin.
So. Yeah, me too. Well, actually, I can't forget about it. I'm very aware of it.
Well, now I'm aware of my skin. I hate you.
Oh, sorry about that.
Ugh, I can feel it on my bones.
Oh. Hellevators in early game Terraria? What are hellevators?
I'm so glad I don't know what a Terraria is. I'm joking. I do know what Terraria is. I just am not an avid enjoyer.
Same.
It's not bad. It just isn't as captivating to me.
I'm just not into 2D games.
Yeah, that's fair. I get the appeal. I'm just not appealed.
Yeah, same. Like, I get it, but just not my cup of tea, you know?
It also is a lot more grinding rather than silly peaceful little game where I can be silly.
A Hellevator is a pit directly to hell. That makes sense.
I want that in my Minecraft house. What?
Everything.
What the fuck do I do with this, like, these peppers and shrooms that I pulled out of my food now?
Just don't eat it.
Yeah, but I'm trying to put the lid back on my food so I can set it off to the side.
Oh.
And they're in the lid.
Oh, I hear something promising.
Vampires?
Could be. I do hear bats that could be like... Oh! Cave! Lily big cave!
I'm gonna put away my food. I'll be right back.
Ah, bitch. Get fucked. Your most played game of all time? That's wild. I think Minecraft's probably my most played game of all time. Oh, get fucked. Get fucked, little bitch. Get fucked. I don't think I got that creeper. Oh, I guess I did. There are so many fucking bats in here. What the shit? That is wild. Alright, I'm opening this up a bit because I hate this zigzag. Dude, if anyone was here for the, for the trip to the end that the Kingdoms SMP members had, our path to the fucking end portal was the worst fucking shit. Holy fuck. It was so bad. We had one bit where we were just fucking zigzagging on a minecart, just whip, beep, 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 beep. It was so bad. 300 hours on Switch, 300 on PC, and 500 modded. I don't even know if I could calculate how many hours I have. I couldn't say straight years, but I have been playing since I was 10, so it'd be like 11 years. And during those 11 years, I didn't like really stop ever. Oh! Oh! Thank you for doing the dirty work, my man. Essentially, that's what that was.
What is popping? I've returned.
I found a tiny cave. I haven't explored it all yet, so I don't know how good it is.
Oh.
Yeah. There were a lot of mobs in here.
There should only be 4.
Nope.
Oh, okay. If you insist.
I do.
My bad, then.
It is your bad. It's supposed to be on this.
Then.
Okay.
How dare I?
That's better. Apple! Mine.
That was my banana. What the heck?
No. Oh no.
Yo.
Okay.
We have the next expansion soon. OMG.
Oh my god.
OMG.
Ow.
Hashtag expansion.
Sean, we bought the new expansion pack?
What? I love Sims. Holy shit, I have 2 crab rangoons left.
Oh, whoa.
Crab rangoon.
Wow. So many bones. Oh, hello.
I threw the sensitivity in my mic up in hopes that you couldn't hear me too violently.
What? Sorry, a creeper just launched another creeper at me.
Oh.
In death, so it's okay. But also, I cannot hear you chew.
Good.
I couldn't really hear you chew before. I could just hear it in your voice more than anything.
That's good. I'd rather you hear it in my voice than actually hear the crunching.
Yeah, that's fair. Hi, Queen.
Bye, Queen. Queen when they are bisexual.
What?
I don't know. I just said bye, Queen.
True. Literally.
Me when Queen is a bisexual icon.
Bicon.
Dog.
Woof.
That's not what the dog says.
Oh. There's so many bats.
I could give the dog a stick. I want to be able to play fetch with the dog.
Me too. I have bones.
What?
Mm-hmm.
When you come back up, we should try and tame them.
Mm-hmm. There's more cave to this cave.
Oh, I'm glad to hear.
Yeah. It's not great cave though. As far as I can tell. And it's gonna take a while before we get the next expansion pack.
Minecraft, but we're in jail.
We are in jail.
Minecraft, but they've jailed us.
This is Minecraft, but
we've finally been contained.
But they've finally found a way to contain us. Yeah, but it's Minecraft, but every day the border grows. Oh, I hear skeleton. And a zombie. Where are you, motherfuckers?
Murdering the bats. Murder the bats.
Murder! Murder!
There can only be one true bat. And it's me. I don't know why I'm a bat all of a sudden. I'm very much not, but yeah.
Hey!
You tamed the dog? Yippee!
I got dog!
Yay, dog!
Dog, 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 dog. Dog, 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 dog.
Are you making him dance?
No.
I'm very suspicious of that now.
I would never make him dance.
You're making him dance, aren't you?
No. Dog, 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 dog.
One of them dog dancers. Oh, dog.
Dog.
You want a tree? Dog want tree?
Dog want tree?
There you go.
Dog's an environmentalist.
Dog says hashtag eco-friendly.
Come here, dog. Dog, please. Don't tilt your head at rotten meat. It's nasty. I'm taking photos for the memories.
Memories.
They turn around and look at me. Memories.
Oh, yippee! I fed him. I'm gonna keep feeding your dog.
What are you feeding him?
Flesh.
No!
He is blood hungry. I will nickname him Blood.
Oh, God.
He will feast upon our enemies, August. I will arm him.
Oh, sorry.
I armed August instead.
I thought I thought he tilted his head at the axe for a second.
Well, do you think if I switch between 9 and 1 fast enough? Nah. Hey, I got flesh. Yeah? Axe.
Oh God, I don't want to witness this.
Axe. Flesh? Axe. Aww.
I don't want to watch this.
Taste for the enemy is indeed an acquired taste. You have to first taste the flesh and the feeling of the kill. The satisfactory of the kill.
You're turning my baby boy into a killer, into a monster.
He's not gonna be a monster. He's gonna be.
Hello.
To your dog? Did he just like?
He teleported to me, and I turned around and looked at him, and he was directly in my face. It was very cute.
Aww.
Yeah, bark bark.
I can hear a bunch of mob noises, but I don't know where.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. I dislike it. Oh, sir, please. If you can't calm down, I understand that you are like freaking out a little bit, but if you can't calm down, I'm gonna have to bring you back up.
It's a bit scary.
He's losing it a little.
Oh shit, I found him.
Oh, you found him? Where were they?
Yep.
Oh, sir! He keeps running back down the stairs and into my face while I'm swinging. And now he's dancing.
How silly. Oh shit, oh shit.
Whoa,
oh, shit.
bro! Okay, now you're hurting yourself. Come on.
The dog?
Yeah.
Come on, bud.
He, like... He went back to the top of the stairs, and because there was a hole at the top, he dropped. Ah! Come on, bud. I don't know where you are. What are you doing? Get him!
Yeah.
Good job, bud.
You want bone? You want flesh?
Yeah, give him some. Yeah, he got hurt. Give him some flesh.
I also want flesh. Flesh. Flesh so yummy.
How are you? Did you eat the flesh?
Yep. Where do you think flesh so yummy came from?
I was hoping not there.
I wasn't convincing him. I was telling him.
Well, he's not getting
speaking from experience. I give him flesh all the time. During dinner, I sneak a bit of flesh under the table for him.
Don't do that. He's gonna get fat.
No, he's not.
Yeah, he's gonna get fat. And then he's gonna get diseases.
You take him on runs all the time, he'll be fine.
He's gonna get heart diseases.
No, he won't. A bit of flesh never hurt anybody. Do not look at the cannibals. Because it's not like I'm giving him brains. That'd be bad. Now that I would not recommend. No, a bit of flesh every now and then. That's just fine. That's okay. You can do that.
I feel like you know what you're talking about.
Oh, I do. I'm a big fan of cannibalism.
I don't know how comfortable I feel with you being around my son anymore.
I'm just teaching him better ways to be a person.
By eating people?
Of course.
That's not right.
Now what lollipop do I want?
Oh my god.
Am I in the mood for some peach mango, some cotton candy, blue raspberry, cherry, green apple, butterscotch, or fruit punch? Kind of lean into green apple or cherry. Because I just had a raspberry one. So I think I'm going to go with, like, cherry. Because that sounds good. Can't wait to eat the entire stick.
There it is.
What?
Nothing.
The stick? Look, sometimes I hunger for the stick. I have a hankering that only the stick can solve.
No, what you have is a problem.
No, what I'm going to have is a stick.
No, what you're going to have is lifelong health issues. Caused by a blockage of sticks.
Of paper?
Yes.
It's not like I'm swallowing the sticks whole yet.
Yet. Keyword, yet.
It'll be fine.
Once again, my strange addictions, hello?
I was watching that clip earlier and it's fucking hilarious.
It's funny because the entire time I'm like laughing and shit, but I'm trying so hard to stay in frame. Like I wanted to curl in on myself so bad, but I'm trying to stay in frame. What?
Bars turned green.
The what?
They turned green.
The what did?
The bars. The bars of the barrier. The entrapment cell turned green for a moment.
Oh, before it moved?
Yeah, I think so.
Huh. That's cool.
Yeah. It just scared me. I've never seen it turn green before, so I screamed.
You're like, it's coming after me!
Green! green!
It turns green and then it turns red and just comes after you. Starts shrinking in.
Rapidly shrinks. Blue, peaceful. Green, you have angered it. Red, it's coming. Run.
Chat just goes, it's coming.
It's coming. It's like...
All you see is just...
Gonna be a server message. Order is closing in on you, 8. Run! Oh god! That's terrifying! You're a dog. Here's some meat. He hungers for the flesh.
No, he does not.
He hungers for the flesh like how I hunger for the stick.
Oh my god.
Him and I are very similar. Time for the lollipop. Okay. What else am I supposed to do with the stick?
Throw it away.
What? You're crazy.
No, you're crazy.
I'm saving it from pollution.
You really aren't.
I'm preventing pollution.
No, you're not.
For every stick I eat,
no.
That's another year added to the calendar.
No.
Yeah.
No.
I checked.
No.
Mm-hmm.
Where does it say that?
God.
You had a chat with God?
Yeah.
What exactly did he say?
He was like, yes, 8, you may eat the lollipop.
With the scream and the explosion at the end too?
Yeah, that's how I went back here.
Went back here. So would you meet him up in heaven?
Jupiter actually.
You know, boys go to Jupiter to get more stupider.
Yeah, and Jesus and I are both transgender, so it was really gender affirming for both of us.
Mm.
It's actually a part of both of our transitions.
That's fair. That's fair. Also, I found more iron right outside the border, and I'm kind of upset.
Oh.
Just wanted to throw that in there.
August, I have bad news.
Huh.
We seem to not have any food.
I have 5 apples.
I hanker.
Yeah. Turn around. 8, turn around on the stairs.
Who are you? Oh, apples. Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
I was texting the government.
What'd the government want?
Wanted to hear about Crate.
Crate? Oh, yeah. Okay. I thought you meant CRATE, and I was like, what?
No.
The inferior crate.
Ow!
Ouchie. I still have to figure out like a good ship name for Levi and I.
There's so many freaking zombies.
Where are you fighting these guys?
In the mine.
Where?
Upstairs now.
Hold on, I have to get more pickaxes and then I'm coming.
Ah! Ah! August. Come with me.
Bad.
Come on down to Adventureland.
Oh, Jesus.
We're gonna have a fun-filled day. Look at that horde. Whee! Oh my god.
Okay.
They're brutal.
Eight, you have my axe.
Probably.
Oh, I got a bow.
Yippee!
Alright, I think... yeah, the torches... Okay, you got them. Cool.
Whoa.
You should have my picks, too.
Oh, yeah, I do. Ah. So, I recently discovered that sheep cannot have, mycelium.
What do you mean?
My sheep that I got from you on Kingdoms.
Thank you.
They cannot eat mycelium.
Oh.
So I had to gather grass from the edges of my island.
Oh, that sucks.
So I'm officially grass-free. The only area around me that has, grass is that sheep pen now. Hello.
I'm so tempted.
Do it.
Do it?
Yeah.
Yeah! Yay!
Wonder Pearl.
Yummy.
Come on over to Adventureland. Gonna have a fun-filled day. It's stuck in my head for some reason. It's not even Adventureland season yet. An Iowa theme park.
Oh. I was wondering. I was like, I don't think I know what that is.
It's like the only good thing in Iowa.
I'm up.
What? When you grow up, do you want to be a tree? Oh, I have a film and broadcasting class next year.
Ooh.
I'm also taking criminal justice.
Oh, cool.
Sounds for fun.
Give me that shit.
I mean, technically they're both for fun.
Hmm.
For serious business that I'm taking this film and broadcasting class. Super serious business. But it's an off my school campus course, but it's connected to my school and all the other schools in the area.
Hmm.
And I'm gonna have to drive. It's gonna be insane.
Gross.
I know. Which means I have to get my driver's license this summer.
You don't have it already?
I have a permit.
Oh.
I can drive. I need an adult in the car.
Hmm.
I could. It's scary.
Where's our hole here?
It's holy. Oh. Wow. I'm gonna plant a tree on your dog.
No! I just got an ad for an Ant-Man movie. Hell yeah.
Ant-Man? More like... pig woman.
Quantumania. Sorry, I remembered the name of the Ant-Man movie. I've been racking my brain since I read that comment. I just said it a little late, so it was badly timed. We have a house now.
OMG.
We desperately need food.
This is why I wanted a water source.
Well, there's water down in the cave.
We have no way of collecting
water. That's the issue. We need one more piece of iron.
Mm-hmm.
I do know where there's more iron. We just need to wait another day before we can get to it.
Where?
Yeah, it's along the edge. You might have to tell me again. Ah! What the fuck, dog? That is not cool!
So mean. For real. What he said.
Makes feral noises. Exactly.
You make a great point. That's how I should go into a job interview.
It just goes in. You're hired.
Yeah. Me when I work at the Walgreens.
The Walgreens.
I have a Walgreens up my road, so I'm gonna work there this summer.
Ooh. I'm gonna be working at Price Chopper.
Whoa. Are you gonna chop prices?
No. It's funny that it's called Price Chopper, but they're more expensive than, like, almost every other grocery store.
Do you have Aldi's?
Yeah.
Okay.
That's why I said almost every other grocery store, because they're, like, more expensive than Aldi's, more expensive than Walmart.
Yeah.
It's dark.
Nuh-uh.
Uh-huh.
They're just crazy.
We're rich!
Accessible iron!
We're rich!
We're never famishing ever
Oh my
more.
God! I'm gonna go smoke this and get the water.
I thought you were gonna say go smoke this for some reason.
Yeah, I'm gonna go smoke this.
I was like, what?
I'm right back. I'm gonna go have a smoke sesh. Where did my daddy go? I'm not entirely
The basement?
Why is my daddy in the basement?
I put him there.
Could let him out.
No.
That's fair.
Acquire hardware, more like beep boop pop beep boop pop.
Beep beep boop boop.
Oh really now?
Mm-hmm.
Interesting take on the matter.
That's the type of noise I was making when I was like jittery earlier. Except just imagine me also flapping my hands and like my whole entire body just going.
Yeah. Real.
Yeah.
Sometimes you just gotta.
Yeah. Where's water? Oh yeah. Okay, I remember.
I have particles stuck on me.
Shut the fuck up, zombie! Sorry, not you.
Hey guys, me, zombie.
Is that not your name?
I don't know. Oh shit! Zombie would be a sick-ass gamer tag.
That would be.
Feel like they'd play Xbox Minecraft though.
Yeah. You fuck, you fucker. Exactly that.
Mm-hmm.
The caps and everything are so correct.
Maybe like a...
Oh, yep.
Oh, true. I forgot the one instead of an I.
Oh, shit.
It's very similar to...
Would you stop fucking shooting at me? You stupid cuck.
August.
What?
I believe the barrier has moved and we have more access to iron. OMG, I'm mining the iron.
Oh my god.
August.
What?
August.
What?
Wah.
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 Wah. Oh, I heard that.
No.
Uh-huh.
No.
Uh-huh.
You never hear my tools break. You're crazy.
I may be crazy, but I did hear it.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, I did.
Not when I gaslight you.
Gaslight gatekeep girl boss?
Yeah, of course.
Oh. Okay.
I got into the stick of my lollipop.
Oh my god. Every time you mention the stick of your lollipop, I lose another year of my life.
That's a shame. Because I'm gaining a year of the Earths.
Oh god.
Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Reduce, reuse, recycle. Am I right, dudes?
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah, brother.
Hell yeah, brother. For every month on testosterone, I should just start becoming more and more redneck. Woo!
Woo!
Food source, food source, food source. Okay. Oh.
You're like, oh, they're dancing. Food source. Meanwhile, I'm breaking it.
August is not a fan of the food source.
Yeah, I actually want us to starve.
Dang it.
Fuck. Oh, there's no more grass. That's okay.
I mean, we could bone meal it, but...
Oh, true. We do have... Oh, we do have 12 bones.
Yeah.
We have a lot of bows. So many bows. Why do we have a boat?
I needed to boat.
Oh, were you trying to break through the barrier?
Maybe.
Why did I immediately know that's what you were up to? Choked a little on my own spit.
Me when I swallow my lollipop wrong. The stick is the most likely part to get stuck in my throat, though.
I wonder why.
I mean, it's not like it's freezing or anything. Do you think paper has ever had a stage where it's wet?
I don't know. I feel like I've watched a video on how they make paper, but I don't remember what went into it other than the chopping of the trees.
Yeah. How bad can I be? I'm just doing what comes naturally. How bad can I be? Just look at me petting this puppy. August, did you have a crush on the Onceler ever?
I did.
Yeah.
I think it was a combination of a crush and also wanting to be the Onceler.
Yeah. That's fair.
Yeah. I think I'd obliterate an entire type of tree just to be the Onceler. And also to fuck the Onceler.
Real? Is there a Lorax the musical?
There's gotta be. There's a musical for almost everything. It's been long enough.
The musical. There is.
Hey! Also, if there's like the disaster and horrendous thing that is Shrek the musical, then there's gotta be.
Mm-hmm.
You know? At least that's my thinking.
Yeah. I'm watching the west end of the Lorax. Why did the Onceler have green hair?
What?
Green hair and pronouns? What the?
They changed his hair color?
I guess. I don't know. Maybe the actor just, like, had a green wig on. Didn't look like his real hair. Maybe it was actually bald. Oh my god, I have an apple.
Whoa.
That's a type of delicacy around these parts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just doing what comes naturally. The green suit would make sense if that matched, but there's also black on his suit. So him having black hair doesn't really affect anything.
Yeah. Hmm.
How good can I be?
That's not how that goes.
I'm not doing what comes naturally.
No!
How good can I be? How good can I possibly be? Let's see.
No!
Put a dog. Just look at me donating to charity. Hi.
Hi.
What you looking at?
Trying to see what I can see.
Water.
Yeah.
That's about it. That's about all I got. As far as my analysis process can go. Water. Rock. That's about it. That's all I got.
What that? Oh.
Do you think if I set up a bot to just like make me walk straight and just click the mining button, I would die?
Probably eventually. From like hunger or falling into something.
Yeah. I think that would be funny though. Ow.
What happened?
Heck was that all about?
What happened?
You punched me.
I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
Yeah, you did.
No, I didn't.
You can't gaslight me. You punched me.
No, I didn't.
That's what they all say.
Who's all?
You don't want to know.
All y'all.
All y'all. Ow. See?
What?
You punched me.
I did.
August, do you want to hear about the state of my lollipop stick?
Not particularly.
Very small.
Oh, that is disgusting. What?
I don't know, I just think it's funny.
What?
August, do you want to hear about the state of my crab rangoons?
Sure.
One left.
Oh, wow. How many did you start with?
4.
Oh.
Ow.
Well.
Peace for the painful way.
My crouch is so spastic.
What?
My crouch is so spastic. I press it once. Okay, bye.
My pickaxe broke.
Oh.
What?
Visual glitch.
Oh.
Where do we want to go? We hit the border.
Right foot, left stomp.
Okay.
Where did the plants go? Oh, they're there. I want them to grow. I'm hungry.
You gonna bone
I
meal?
want the food. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm at 3 hunger bars. How about you?
3.
Hmm. Come back up. Pick broke.
Oh no. I'm also at 1 heart, so oh my god, it's a pig. Come here, let me murder you. You're a delicacy. Mmm. August!
What?
We have enough for 2 bread.
Oh my gosh. What a day.
Oh my gosh, we're rich. August, hither is a bread.
Yes. Thank you.
No problem.
Oh. Oh, so many seeds. Oh, got another seed.
Ooh. You like threw it into the water.
Yeah. I'm patrolling the edge of the border to see if there are any more little bits of grass.
Yeah. Yay, I can run once more.
Alright, that's it. It looks like.
Yay!
What the fuck is this?
What?
What is this?
What do you mean?
This! What is this?
What?
Why are there saplings in our house, 8?
What do you mean?
What do you mean? What do you mean?
What's the issue?
Why are there saplings in our house?
There isn't.
Don't gaslight me.
There's no saplings, August. I don't know what you're on about.
I can feel them between my toes.
What? August, do we need to send you back?
No.
I don't know. Have you talked to your therapist this week?
No.
You might want to start.
No. 8. Why?
What?
The saplings, 8. Why?
What saplings?
These saplings.
There's no saplings.
Yes, there are.
You're looking at the grass insanely.
No, I'm not.
Yeah, you are.
No, I am not.
Yeah, you are.
No, I am not.
Yeah, you are.
No, I am not. Until you can see the truth. No, get out.
Your dog's mine now, then.
No.
Hey, boy, you want to play with Skip?
No!
Play with flesh and bones?
Do not give him flesh.
We're gonna go play with flesh and bones down
Do not give him flesh. He is on a no-flesh diet.
No, come on. He can have a little bit of flesh.
He's on a no-flesh diet.
He can have a bit of flesh sometimes.
No.
The sanity house. For the criminally sane. It's okay, August. You can admit it. I'm here for you. No flesh diets only. How do you expect me to live if I can't eat the flesh of my deceased? Please, I want to eat the flesh of the deceased. Please let me in. Please. I hunger.
Hey, no, we have to have a serious, no, hey, we have to have a serious conversation.
What?
Are you gonna accept the truth?
What truth?
That there are saplings on our floor.
There are no saplings.
There are, right there. Are you gonna accept the truth that there are saplings on our floor, right there?
The floor is blank.
No, it is not.
Grass.
No, it is not.
I guess that is like 10, 11, 12 grass blocks I see, plus the ones that are like underneath the chest and everything.
Get out.
Like, okay. Hey dog, I got some flesh.
Stop it!
Yeah, it's so yummy. Yeah, it's so yummy. Flesh party.
No, no flesh parties.
What?
No flesh parties.
What are you on about?
No flesh parties.
Ah! He hungered for flesh too hard. His craving was too strong.
You know the truth, don't you? You know the truth, don't you? Don't you, Wolfie? You know. I mean, you're sitting right in it, huh? Yeah. Yeah, you know. Get out! It's a coup. It's a coup, Wolfie. They won't believe us, but soon they'll believe everything. I'm gonna bring them proof. Keep your rotten flesh out of my house!
What are you on about, August? There was no rotten flesh.
They're trying to corrupt us. Trying to get in my head. Trying to make me think things. But I know. Oh, I know. Oh, I know that they know, but they won't know. Oh, they won't know. They won't know. Oh, you think you know. You think you know what you know, but you don't. You don't. You won't know. You won't know until I know.
I think August is like a crazy old man across the street that's like spouting conspiracies. 9/11! It's fake!
We're safe, Wolfie. Oh, we're safe. We have all the evidence we need. We just gotta keep them out. Now bring the evidence. Come on. We just gotta bring the evidence. Yeah. Come on. Yeah. I don't know where we're gonna go, but just gotta figure it out, because, we know. We know what we know, and that's all that matters. As long as we know that they know. We're gonna bring him down. Gonna bring him down, Wolfie. They're not gonna get in my head. Oh, no. My mind is like a steel trap.
Hi? Can I help you? Are you okay?
Don't talk to him, Wolfie. That's the enemy.
Okay.
You gotta find a way out of here, Wolfie. Gotta gnaw our way out like a rat. Gotta... Listen, Wolfie, if it comes to it, alright? This is the mission, okay? Where'd you go? What? Wolfie? Wolfie, what were you doing? Wolfie, don't doubt me. Don't doubt the mission. Wolfie. Listen, the mission means everything, Wolfie, okay? You can't be doubting this right now. We're so close, okay? No. So that's how it is, huh? You're just gonna turn your back, just like that. Even though I have the evidence. I have irrefutable proof. I see how it is. I don't want to do this, Wolfie. You made me do this. You made me do this, and I don't know what else to do, because if you're not with me, you're with them. And if you're with them, no, don't you run away. Cause Because if you're not with me, you're with them, and if you're with them, I don't know what you've done. You could have tampered with the evidence. You could have. Did you get in my head? Did you? Have you been with them this entire time? I'm sorry, Wolfie. I'm sorry. It's just me now. Gotta get out of here. Gotta find my way out of here. Gotta get the evidence. Gotta get to them before they can get to me. I gotta get the mind like a steel trap. If they get to me, I gotta know my way out. Gotta find my way. Gotta make it out of here. Mission or anything. Gonna break out. I'm gonna get out of here. I'm gonna show them the proof. I'm gonna prove to them that Wolfie was wrong and that this means everything. That it was real and that mind is like a steel trap. Mind over everything. Mind over matter. Mind like a bat. Mind like an elephant. No. Mind.
What are you doing?
Hi.
Hi, Argus.
What's up?
Not much. How's it going?
It's going pretty good. How about you?
Pretty good. Do you got birch saplings by chance?
No, only oak.
Can I check?
Can you check what?
If you do have birch saplings?
No, I only have oak.
You sure?
Here's my oak.
I need birch though.
I only have oak. Here, let's go check in the house.
Okay. Am I allowed in yet?
Sure. I don't know why these are up. I don't know who put those up. That's a little weird.
Oh.
But oh yeah, we got 11 birds. Oh, whoa.
Where'd the dog go?
I don't know. He was right behind me. That's a little. It's a little weird. Maybe he just went for a run or something.
Maybe.
There's 11 birch saplings in there if you want them.
Oh yeah. That'd be great. Thanks.
Of course. My pick broke. I gotta get a new one. Why is there flesh in here? Hey, why is there flesh in the cobblestone chest?
What?
Why is there flesh in the cobblestone chest?
Oh, shoot, I don't know.
Someone defaced our house with this shit. That's weird.
Oh, that's horrible.
It's so wrong.
That's horrible. I don't imagine why that would ever happen.
I know. So are we saving this pork chop for anything?
I don't believe so.
Okay, I'll cook it.
I think it's just pork chop.
How's our farm doing? Oh, look at the little house. Cute.
Yeah. It's a little farmhouse.
Oh, that's amazing.
Oh, it was a pretty good farm.
Oh, I got another seed.
Oh, yay.
Do you happen to have the farm tools?
The hoe?
Yes.
Yeah.
Rip. Oh. Well, that. I mean, I guess that works.
Yeah.
Oh, my butt hurts.
One way or another, I guess.
Yeah.
I think our cubic meter is starting to turn into a bit of a jungle.
Yeah. Lots of trees.
Mm-hmm. A nice little brim on my house.
I thought that was the farmhouse.
Farmhouse, my house. I am one with the farm. Me and the farm were like brothers. Me and my farm. It's like me and my monkey, but a little bit different.
To Rocco rhyme, that's right on time. It's tricky, tricky, tricky. Here we go.
Let's change the rock around the town is tricky. It's tricky, tricky, tricky.
Apple!
Yippee. Good?
Yep.
You sure?
Yep. What?
You were looking through the barrels frantically.
What, like this?
Yeah, just a little bit spooky. Looking through my dirt and my flesh. You good?
Yep.
What are you doing? That's a teeth. Or trees.
4 trees.
T stands for tree. Ah. Ooh, birch. Need that for my walls. You good?
Yeah.
You just seem a bit...
Why do you keep asking?
You seem a bit frantic.
What do you mean?
I don't know. Something about you.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah. It's trying to rock around, it's tricky. It's tricky. Just for the painful way she makes me feel all day. What you doing? Okay.
My eye itches.
Have you tried asking it politely?
Yeah. It punched me.
Oh. That's kind of rude, don't you think?
A little bit.
Have you tried asking it not to punch you?
I tried, but it seems like a little bit of a bully, if I'm being honest.
Oh, that's kind of rude.
Yeah.
Yeah, at that point, I just remove the whole thing.
Yeah. I'm thinking about it.
Yeah. It's probably for the best.
Yeah.
It's like when you get injured as a kid, and your parents go, just gotta cut it off now.
Mm-hmm.
And then you cry, so they're like, you're fine.
Honestly, exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What's up?
Nothing. I'm just admiring your house. It's looking good so far.
Thanks.
Stick.
Find sticks.
Yeah. I got a stick.
Oh.
Stick.
Like metal?
What?
I don't know. That's cute.
Mm-hmm.
Got a cozy little area now.
Yeah.
Gotta block off the windows. Come in. Thanks. I just needed to clean the windows. I don't really want to use doors as windows, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Seems a bit distasteful if you ask me. I don't know, my pickaxe broke. Oh, I had another one. Oops. Did I say pickaxe? I meant my axe. I don't know why why I'm cutting down trees with an axe or a pickaxe.
Yeah, that's a little.
Know why I'm cutting them down with my axe. That's kind of the proper tool.
Yeah.
I think it'd be strange if I cut them down with my Be a bit strange if I cut them down with my pickaxe. Or yeah, pickaxe.
Just a little bit.
Keep getting them confused. They're right next to each other, and that's all I've had.
That.
Too political. Come on.
Sorry. Wow, fall from the sky, huh?
Oh yeah, sometimes. Sometimes they ask me if that's why I'm
been locked in.
I don't know. I had a something. Have nice little natural light and to look at the moon rising. What? Are you? Oh. You good?
Yeah, I'm burning grass. I didn't mean to burn it near your house. Sorry.
Why were you burning grass?
Ow.
I mean, I've burnt grass a few times. I've burned dandelions. That looks pretty cool. I'm gonna start a forest fire.
No, it's fine.
That's spreading awfully fast. You think I can jump from my roof into the 1 block hole of water?
Don't see why not.
I'm gonna do it. Whee! It's a nice little splash. Are you sure you're not gonna start a forest fire?
I'm positive.
A tree literally just caught.
It's okay if that tree catches. It's outside of our boundaries.
For like a day.
Well, we don't need that tree.
Birch though. Oh, why is my house? My house is on fire. What is it? Why is my house on fire? What are you burning? Are you setting my house on fire? August.
Sacrifice is a necessity.
What do you mean? For August. We can talk about this. We can talk about this. We can August. Come on. What's up, man? What happened? You good?
I know you're trying to get into my head.
With what?
This whole act. I know.
What? What act? What did I do?
You see the saplings. I know you do.
What? It was just a little jokey joke, you know?
Little jokey joke?
Little funny, haha, come on. Look, I just... Come on. You want some flesh?
You're just like him.
Who?
You're with him, aren't you?
Who?
Wolfie. You turned him against me.
What? What do you mean I turned him against you?
You made him leave me.
He didn't.
He was gonna come with me, and he turned away from me.
He wanders. He's a dog. Come on.
We were gonna take the evidence together, but he left me.
What evidence?
The evidence of the saplings.
What do you mean?
Now he's dead, and it's all because of you.
I didn't do any. What?
You've gotta go.
I gotta go where?
Goodbye.
Bye? What? Oh no! No!
Well, that was Minecraft butt.
Whoa!
Whoa!
Minecraft butt. It's so fun. It wasn't that a lot of fun.
I love how unhinged these are becoming.
How fun. How sweet. Just two brothers hanging out.
There's your flesh.
Fun. Thanks for my flesh, man.
Of course. Sorry about burning your house down.
It's chill. I had it coming. Something was bound to burn down. It's a cute shack, though. I've made it. It
is very cute.
Like, I was surprised. I was just throwing blocks together, in all honesty.
I love the little details you did. I am sad that I burnt it down for a bit.
It was a good bit. It was a good bit. It was a pretty funny bit. This was a good bit. I liked it. I wasn't gonna break the all around sign so I just kind of made a skylight. That was pretty good Minecraft episode.
Yeah.
I think the people will like it. I hope the people enjoy this.
Using mebbles.
Some wheat.
Oh, thank you.
I don't know about your teeth or flesh.
Sorry, I got hit by Kazoo Kid.
That was some good Minecraft fun.
Yeah. I figured I tried to like hold out as long as possible because I knew I wanted to do something. But I wanted to hold out for as long as possible because I knew we were getting closer to the 2-hour mark.
You like the trees, the flesh, the hunger, you are confined.
Yeah, that was good. Get out of here,
pretty funny.
Bitch.
What's he up to? You should climb the border.
That'd be funny, see him all the way up there.
He can! He's silly.
True!
Can do that. They're crazy with it.
Yeah.
There's some string.
It's funny because the only reason I know that is from, the Wilbur Soap video where Jay Schlatt's God. Or not the Wilbur Soap video, but the Slime School video.
Oh, yeah. Good episode.
Yeah, and then you see all of them being thrown around in a fucking like tornado, and you see a spider just casually climbing up the border.
Oh yeah. You got some more flint?
No, that was the only one.
Oh damn. I'm gonna grab some flint from the mines and burn this baby down.
Well, do you want the flint and steel? Okay.
We can both burn it down.
Okay.
It can be a team effort. Just wait until I got my flint and steel.
Another Quantum Mania ad. That's amazing.
The Ant-Man, so important.
Yeah.
I have 2 pieces of gravel. I'm eventually bound to get one.
Here, give me one and I'll mine it and you get the other.
Okay. Minecraft. Oh, I got it.
Hey. Fuck out of here.
I win Minecraft butt.
What are we burning everything?
Yeah.
Okay. Ow. I'm not good at this.
A little pyromania never hurt anyone.
Yeah.
It's good for the soul.
I'm a little bit of a pyromaniac.
Yeah.
I mean, I've told the story about me sticking my hand in a tiki torch.
Oh, yeah. Sometimes you gotta just burn it all down to really solidify everything.
Oh.
Really emphasize your time here. Oh. Mine's also about to break, but I think I've set fire to enough that everything will burn in due time.
That's good. Oh, yep.
It's Yeah. Talk about leaving the world better than we found it. Wow. It's crazy. This would be an insane thumbnail. Hold on. Clear weather real quick. This looks fucking hilarious. Won't even have to draw one at this rate. Wow.
Fucking wild.
That was hilarious. Yay! Netherite? What? That's crazy.
Whoa, we got netherite.
We defeated the game.
Whoa! What? We're such pros at this game. That's insane.
We're great at this game. Wow. It's crazy. This is how I like my life. Burning everything down when I'm finished. Soothing, some may say.
I am some
soothing sounds of burning. August, come stand with me while the fires blaze. We are truly a sight to behold. This is what's good. This is what's good about society. This is the true meaning of Christmas, actually. Merry Christmas.
You caught me on fire a little bit.
Yeah, I do that sometimes. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
And a happy
New Year. Your sign is still intact.
I'm not aware. Oh God. That's so ominous. Jesus. The trees, the flesh, the hunger. You are confined. I think that should be like the description of this video when it uploads.
It should be. Wow. That's actually a perfect description now that I think about it.
Yeah, it really is.
Oh God.
Wow.
Why is the shack still up? Jesus!
You're so good. Your shack is like perfectly fireproof somehow.
Jesus.
The sap.
Our farm's still doing good though.
Yeah. What can I say? Profit. Make bread. Get gains.
Oh God! I just watched that explode.
Yeah.
Trap, steel, trap, steel.
What does that mean?
I put steel trap and then I put steel trap.
Well, it's steel as in like the stone, I thought. Isn't theft? That's seal.
Well, because it's like
theft.
Well, because it's like my mind is like a steel trap.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Okay.
Yeah.
I get my August lore now. This Minecraft video, we went absolutely mental.